We're in Washington Square Park, right, Jake?
Yes.
In North Beach, which is sort of the home of the Beats. And we're talking about Ruth Weiss, who hitchhiked in 1952 from Chicago and set up life here, and became very well known among the Beat community. Unfortunately, is little known today, so maybe our conversation will help to revive interest in Ruth Weiss. And we're talking about a poem that's called Poem in this anthology, the Beatitude Anthology, published in 1960. And I guess, Lily, I'm just curious about the tone of this thing. What's your sense of the tone of it?
Very somber and spiritual, I would say, almost biblical.
I have this immediate question I want to ask both of you. Ruth Weiss is a very urban person, Berlin, Amsterdam, I believe, as they were, the family was in exile, then Chicago, then San Francisco. And she did spend some time at Big Sur, as so many Beat poets did, but she's a city poet. So what is that automatically, without really knowing anything about her except this poem, what is its attitude toward the city? You say it's spirituality here, but it strikes me as sort of anti-city spirituality, maybe.
Well, I think it seems like there's a dichotomy being drawn between hunger and desertion. So, like, just because you live in a city doesn't mean you, like, love city. I don't know, it doesn't mean that cities are only good.
Yeah.
Cities can be both bad and good.
Yeah. Jake, what's your take on this attitude toward the city here?
Maybe it's like saying, well, there are no people left in New York anymore. It's just all like a different kind of town. Maybe she's saying there's nobody left in the city. In the city that she has left, there's nobody there that she knows any longer. Nobody she can relate to. Maybe some kind of alienation thing.
Lily, is it possible to read this as post-apocalyptic?
Yeah, I think so.
Why else would the animals have come down from the hills?
Yeah, it's post-apocalyptic in the sense that people are concentrating into a city. Like, there's the hills as an outer ring, and then the village, and then the city at the center.
Yeah.
So people are, like, concentrating into the city. Although then it's post-apocalyptic because they get to the city and no one's there.
Yeah, so it's a bit circular.
Yeah, like, it sort of seems like the city's an open pit, and as everyone's concentrating there, they're disappearing, and more keep coming in, but they don't. Then they disappear once they get there.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying people who were in the city are gone, right? Because we know where the animals are, and we know where the villagers are.
But the villagers are not the city people. The villagers have left for the city.
Right, so they're coming into the city, but what happened to people who were in the city?
Right, I'm saying they disappeared.
We're recording this on a beautiful fall weekend in San Francisco, and it's Fleet Week. And Lily had to explain what Fleet Week is to me. Do you want to say how you explain it to me?
Oh, well, it's just like a week, maybe once a year or every couple of months, where a naval fleet will come ashore at a city, and all of the naval officers and other people can leave the boat and come into the city. And here there's like an air show going on.
They're celebrating with an air show. And that atmosphere just has me think about San Francisco during the Cold War. San Francisco, just across the big pond from the destruction wrought on the Japanese by the atomic bomb. This is an era of fears of atomic annihilation. And Ruth Weiss is an escapee from the Holocaust, a Jewish family. So can we go back to the possible post-apocalyptic, post-Holocaust implications of this scene?
So waves of destruction, migrants leaving one spot of destruction, and gradually these concentric circles of loss.
Yeah. So, Lily, it's no secret that you're not a big fan of the Beats. So how would you draw possibly a distinction? This is not a Beat-seeming poem. It's in the Beatitude Anthology.
Yeah.
What are some differences do you see?
Well, when we think about, like, Jack Kerouac as kind of a ultimate Beat person, his attitude of, like, loving the urban space and its concentration of different kinds of people,
Right.
different sounds, making those sounds into the poetry, but also a love of big open country as kind of a place to fill with his own words and his own space.
Right.
And we here see like a really like a pithy and very dark concentration of all those, collapsing of all those spaces into one, and like I see them as kind of collapsing and then just going down a drain, like disappearing.
Yeah.
And there's no noise or sound.
Yeah, that's great. Jake, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, the economy of words, right? She's basically reusing most of the words from the first verse and the second verse.
Right.
And yeah, like you think about somebody like Allen Ginsberg, you just have these explosions of words going off. And here you get a completely different, the allegory, the sparseness, the quiet. Then again, the Beats were interested in like the haiku type of.
And her beat colleagues were interested in the spiritual side of things. Some of the sentiment here reminds me of Joanne Kiger, Philip Whalen, Gary Snyder, that side of it. One last thing before we stop here. The Beatitude Anthology, which was put out by people who really knew Ruth Weiss personally, capitalized R and W, but she was very adamant that her name be printed in lowercase.
Yeah.
Do we want to say something about that? I mean, it reminds me of Dickinson's preference for how she was figured, which kept getting violated by people who published her.
Well, it's biblical, right? The lack of capitalization in like ancient Hebrew. You don't have capital letters.
Yeah.
So maybe because lately you were saying it reminds me of something biblical and like that kind of epic, allegorical feel. Maybe now that you said it, I was thinking of maybe spiritual hunger. That's the hunger that's happening. So maybe maybe that's what she's going back to.
Yeah. Well, she said that she preferred lowercase because the language, her mother tongue, German, of course, was structured on the capitalization of nouns and proper nouns, and she wanted to provide an alternative to that.
She's decapitalizing.
She's decapitalizing her German. She's trying to emphasize herself as a kind of survivor. The fact that they capitalized it must have been an irritant to her, particularly with the sentiment of this poem. Last thoughts on this? Do you like this poem, Jake? What do you get from it?
I've grown to like it more since we started talking about it, because it is very sparse, very very difficult. But if I'm kind of Lily's comment about the spiritual element here, the spiritual hunger that might be driving all of this, I think that makes it interesting.
Yeah, Lily, your thoughts?
Yeah. Usually this move from the hills to the village to the city is figured as a positive upward mobility, American progress. And here she's saying, like, first of all, there's no big difference between the people and animals who live outside of the city. They're all driven by the same gnawing, bad feeling, and then they all come to the city and just like step into a void and disappear. Anyway, so I like that it's not very... I like that it celebrates the aspect of beat culture that wanted to critically examine the American dream in a way that is very concise.
Yeah, that's terrific. I see this as a poem very much of its moment, published in 1960, probably written in 1958 or 59, and it picks up themes of the 1960s that merge with the anti-fascism from which she came. This is a political poem, even though it's really doesn't seem to make any explicit mention of it. This is a I would go as far as to say an anti-nuclear and anti-war poem, and it has some of that fearful urgency that some of the political beat poets feel when they think about nuclear annihilation. So thanks. We're at Washington Square Park in San Francisco, talking about Ruth Weiss on a sunny day. What could be better?
The animals have come down from the hills to the village because of hunger. The villagers have left for the city because of hunger. The city is deserted. Ruth Weiss.
The animals have come down from the hills to the village because of hunger. The villagers have left for the city because of hunger. And the city is deserted.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
But I know her very
You
well.
know her. It's called Poem.
All right, poem.
She's German.
She's
When in
German,
doubt.
yes.
Yeah.
The animals have come down from the hills to the village because of hunger. The villagers have left for the city because of hunger. The city is deserted.
It's a pretty great poem, isn't
It's a
it?
good poem. I have one of her
I
original.
remember going to a performance that she did, and it was called No Dancing Allowed,
No Dancing.
ALOUD.
Yeah, right.
I have
Did you
a lot of
dance?
her books.
We dance. I wonder about Desert
Yeah.
Journal.
Yeah, I have a
Desert
lot
Journal.
Yeah,
of
we
her
have it somewhere, God knows where.
She gave me a whole
So
bunch.
did she live in North Beach for a while?
Yes.
And then move out?
Many
Been gone a
years.
long
gone.
time.
Hey, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you,
Please.
when I was on a ship going around the world, her and her boyfriend at the time, I can't remember his name.
Probably best.
Paul.
They,
Paul,
they
okay.
split up a long time
They
ago.
came up from L.A. They were living down in Topanga.
Yeah, Topanga. And then they were in Palo
And then
Topanga
they stayed at my
Canyon.
house, Topanga Canyon. They
Yeah.
stayed up at my house on Hodges Alley.
Oh, really? Okay.
He
Yeah.
worked at the Emporium for a while.
So-
Where I worked, he was in the display.
Why do you think Ruth is not better known?
Because she is known
Well,
locally.
she's better known.
She's known locally.
But I mean, she's not like known to like.
She's not like
Gregory
a name
Corso
like
or-
Corso or
Yeah.
Kerouac or whatever.
No, probably
Yeah.
not. Except amongst
No,
some of
I,
the circle.
yeah,
but
I think she
probably
might
is
be,
here in
but
San
she's all
Francisco.
over the place. She comes down here all the time.